on children and play. John Adams said, "Children should be educated and instructed in the principles of freedom." This is an interesting quote because without the word principles, it wouldn't make sense. What are the principles of freedom, and why and how should children be instructed in them and educated in them? So let's take apart instructed and educated. They're two different words, and in English, in every language, when there are two different words, there are two different meanings. So let's define instructed using the etymology as saying giving structure to, form, struct, in. To instruct someone is to give them a procedure, a way to do a task. You can instruct someone on how to make tea, how to tie their shoe, how to draw a right angle. So instruction is basic and straightforward. The more difficult the task, the more complex the instruction. Educated is a much more complex and daunting task. To be educated in something takes a long time. It is beyond instruction. It is meaning making. Education is working with a teacher and fellow students towards a better life. Okay, so Adams is saying that children should be both instructed and educated. That right there is interesting. Some people see education as something coming after instruction. When you're young, you get instruction. When you're older, you might learn a little more, and after some time, you have an education. So you go sort of from easy to difficult. Adams is saying that the difficult and the easy should go together at the same time for children. They should be both given deep knowledge through proper instruction. How? Well, he talks about the principles of freedom. He's not saying that children should be allowed to do whatever they want, because he uses the word freedom. And I'm going to define freedom here as responsible choice. The principles of responsible choice are what? What are these things, these principles, these guiding goals for responsible choice? Well, in the quote, Adams doesn't say. But I'm going to take this and extrapolate to say what might be two principles of freedom here that will help in the instruction and the education of children. I think responsible choice requires, at its most basic level, something that children can grasp. Fairness and freedom. That means you have to be fair to someone. When you want to do something, you have to think how it will affect someone else. And then you have to be given the ability to choose for yourself. The principles of responsible choice is the freedom to choose and the understanding of how your choices affect other people. We might call this responsibility. So, responsibility and respect. Let's run this through again and see if it works. Children should be instructed, given direction, and educated, allowed to approach deep knowledge through the principles of freedom, the understanding of choosing and having the right to choose, and understanding our choices affect other people. Freedom as social and as individual. Now, why might John Adams, one of the founders of the United States, think this idea? Well, if you come through it to the point of view of someone who's concerned with founding a country, running a government, I think one way of looking at the quote is to say that if children aren't instructed and educated in the principles of freedom, then how can citizens be able to choose responsibly and on their own? There's a correlation here between where do you start and where do you end up. Citizens aren't born, they're made. And the first step in that is sharing and showing children how to make choices and why to make them, as you understand who you are and who are your fellows in the community, in the country, in the classroom. So, knowing that John Adams was a politician and a historian and a founder of the United States helps us look at this quote a little more deeply. However, just for a teacher or for a student or for a parent, the quote still has value. The most subtle part is the and. Instructed and educated. And I really appreciate that distinction, because I believe that too often we misjudge the difference between instruction and education. They're treated as the same thing. But if you really think about it, you can see how they're not. And I also appreciate his definition of freedom, including principles that under freedom are underlying values and goals. This makes the quote more profound than it seems at first.